All right, so I'm going to go through the chapter 6 notes that goes over adults in society, how adults function, what we define as adult, what expectations are as you move through your adult years. And some of you, this is going to be very pertinent or relevant information because you are now in adulthood. Some of you are 18, some of you are going next year and starting a job and moving out or going to college or whatever. So we're going to kind of take a look at what adulthood entails. I'm going to go through the whole section of notes. If you don't want to do the whole lecture today, that's fine. I'm going to just give the lecture today on this Wednesday, April 1st, and then you are more than welcome to come back to do the other half of it when you want. I'm going to post the open note quiz on Friday of this week. So I know this is like white blue day, but the open note quiz will be available to you. And I'll tell you when I'm going to close out this unit and you can't turn in work anymore. So if you want to go ahead and open up the PowerPoint, I've already posted this on Google Classroom, and just follow. You can like keep my tab open and then just follow along. If you guys are writing notes, remember, I will tell you when you need to write something down for the quiz. Those of you doing fill in the blank notes, just go through and fill in the blanks like you've always done. If you need to pause the video and catch up, pause the video and catch up. This is all your pace. That's probably the good thing about online class. Okay, so if you go ahead and go to slide 6, my PowerPoint's over here, so sorry I'm not looking at the screen. We're going to be looking at the adult male development, and we're going to be looking at the different stages of adulthood. So let's start off with early adulthood, and if you have a pen and paper, I would write the 4 bullet points in early adulthood on your pen and on your paper. So this is between ages 17 and 22. Typically, what happens is you're either going to college or you're getting a full-time job. If your parents are letting you loaf, I mean, good for you maybe, but most of you guys are making big life decisions at this point. So this is when you transition into the adult world. You are becoming more responsible for your decisions and for yourself. You can go to jail for real. In Texas at 17, you can go to jail, big boy jail. So you're expected to explore opportunities. We tell you, try this, try that. You're young. If you mess up, you've got time to recover from those mess ups. But you're also now making like really serious commitments. If you're going to college, we're like, look, you can't be here for 10 years. It's too expensive. You kind of need to decide which path you're going to go down. If you're going into a career, is this the career that you're going to want for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? And so 17 through 22 is really exciting, but it's really like hard because you're growing and you've got a lot more responsibility. So the big age 30, from 28 to 32, it's super crucial because this is when you're entering what we call like the novice phase of adulthood. Like, you know what you're doing. I know I'm 31. I can make my own doctor's appointments. I don't need anyone to go with me. I know how to pay all my bills. I know how to do my taxes. I know how to go buy a car. I can go get an apartment if I need to. I can fill out a lease, no problem. But a lot of people at this age actually change directions. Like, they've been doing something for 8, 9 years. And then they're like, I kind of want to start I'm young enough still that I can start something else without it really impacting me too much. Like, if I wanted to right now, I could go start another career and still be able to probably retire in my mid 50s. I'm not going to do that, but I could because I'm still young enough. So let's go to slide number 8, the settling down. So this is between ages 33 and 39. And this is where you're very comfortable in your career. Typically, you're very comfortable with who you are. And you are trying to get promotions. Like, we're trying to make it to the next level. We're trying to get vice president of the company. We're trying to do this. This is also where people begin to separate from their mentors. So you may not realize this, but a lot of you have mentors, people that you've looked up to for advice, and you've looked at their life and you've like modeled what you're doing after them. And if you have a pen and paper, I would write down the definition of mentor on there. And a mentor is someone who fosters a person and helps them develop a belief in themselves. They're a very positive role model in your life. And this can be one of your parents, it could be both of your parents, it could be a teacher, it could be a pastor, it can be anyone that you look up to and really look to for advice, and they help you achieve your dreams. So, the midlife transition, aka also known as the midlife crisis. And I would write down in the midlife transition, or the middle, is where adults have this midlife crisis. And this is when a lot of people, especially men, begin to question their decisions. Did I make the right career choice? Did I marry the right woman? Are my kids going to be okay? Am I who I want to be? Is this it for me? A lot of people, again, especially men, become really stressed out from this age between 40 and 44. And it's very normal. What really helps is if you become a mentor during this time to someone else and help them realize their dreams, because now you are pouring yourself, you have another focus, and helping someone else grow is a super positive experience. And this will really help. This will just really help you get through this really difficult phase. My dad went through this really badly. At 43, he worked out really. He was always a slim guy, but he started working out, just pumping the weights, and he started dressing very differently. And he decided to leave my mom. And after 25 years of marriage, it's crazy. And he got, it's like a little Lexus sports car, and then all of a sudden he had a girlfriend, and on God, he's still going through this midlife crisis phase 10 years later. And I think part of the reason is he just was looking around, and I guess he didn't find fulfillment in what he was doing, which is really sad. And I think if he had been a mentor or had the capability of helping someone else, it would have been different, but just watch out. Okay. So let's go look at adult female development, because it's a little different for us ladies. So we go basically through the same stages, but there are 3 big differences. And so if you have a pen and paper, you need to write what's in red. So the 3 differences are leaving the family, entering the adult world, and re-entering the world of work. Those are our 3 big differences. So what I mean by that is when we get married, we have a physical and psychological break from our family. We change our last name. We become someone else's family. It's not that you can't love your mom and dad. You're still part of that family, but you have a whole psychological break, and you begin to value your relationship, your marriage, whatever, your cohabitation situation. You value that over everything else, including work. And so that person, that significant other, that relationship becomes the most important thing. And you can see that because when women become mothers, they're the ones that are expected to stay home. Not just because they had the baby, but because they're the ones that are expected to make the biggest change. And it's great. A lot of women become moms in their 20s. But a lot of women find it very hard to work and to raise a very young child, like a baby. And so some of them will take a break from employment. They will all right, I'm going to take a couple years off and raise this baby, then I'm going to go back to work. That's great. That's all cool. Fun. It's just hard because when they decide to re-enter the workforce, they usually have to start kind of back at the bottom, which is stressful because they're capable of doing more. And sometimes they feel like behind the times. I know a couple of teachers that have come back and they haven't taught for 4 or 5 years, and everything. I mean, the whole technology thing is different, and they know the material, but they don't know how to work the technology. And so they're struggling to keep up because of that. And their commitment to their career is a little hard because some of them feel guilt for not being at home with the kids more. And if the kid gets sick at school, they're the ones that are expected to take off work, not the dad, and go pick up the kid and take time off. So women will experience a halt in achieving the same levels of men when it comes to careers when they have kids, typically. And that's unfortunate. Many other countries are doing it better than us. They're giving the mom and the dad a year off to raise the kid, but who knows? All right, so section 2. The labor force. Work involves performing all, you know what work is. You are choosing to go and produce goods or provide services for other people. I provide a service. I provide education. Some of you guys are going to produce materials. Some of you guys may go work in a restaurant. You're producing food for people to eat. The typical individual will spend 50 years in the labor force. Some of you are like, so I'm going to be 70 years old working? No. A lot of us started working at 15 or 16 years old. So you'll probably be done in your mid 60s. Now the labor force also includes like, hey, I retired at 58, but I decided to go volunteer. You're still part of if you're volunteering somewhere like at Goodwill, that's still part of the labor force. Now I would write the definition of work down if you have a pen and paper, just FYI. And the labor force includes anyone that's 16 years or and older who has a paid position or who is seeking a paid position. So not only do we count people that are working as part of the workforce, we're also counting people that are looking for work. In May 2016, the employment population ratio was 59.7%, which means of the 320 million people living in America, 59.7% of us are part of the workforce. That's a lot. That's a really big number. So the composition of the workforce, we've seen an increase in women working, obviously. Now I'd write this down. The fastest growing minority group, it should be no surprise, that's joining the labor force in America are Hispanics, clearly. If you go to Texas, you will see that hands down. They make up, at least in San Antonio, the biggest part of the workforce. So unemployment, what's considered an acceptable, let me make sure I have that right. Oh, okay. So the first thing I would write down, we're going to be on slide 18. We're on the unemployment slide. I would write down the definition for unemployment if you need a pen and paper, if you're taking this by hand. And this occurs when a person doesn't have a job but is seeking a job. So you need to understand there's a difference between being unemployed and being homeless or like a bum. Just because you don't have a job doesn't mean you are aka bum. If you are seeking to try to find a job, that's what we consider unemployment. If you don't have a job and you're not seeking to get a job, you're not part of the unemployment factor. I'd also write this down. A 5% unemployment rate is what's considered acceptable in the United States. Anything higher is a crisis, is too many people out of work, which is going to be really interesting right now with the COVID-19 situation, the coronavirus, because technically there are people that don't have, with bars and restaurants and everything shut down, technically there are a lot of people without jobs right now. So keep an eye on what they do with that. Watch how the government works. I know they're trying to pass the stimulus bill. So just keep an eye on that. Just the changing nature of work. We know that back in the day, like 1900s and before, a lot of people were in agriculture. We're growing food or manufacturing. They're working in factories. So if you lived in like New York City, you're working in a factory. You lived out here in Kansas, you are probably farming. Now, today, most people are in like management and sales, and they're overseeing the production of goods. Not a whole lot of people work in factories. Not a whole lot of people are working on farms. Many manufacturing jobs have been outsourced thanks to globalization. And I would probably write that last down. Many manufacturing jobs have been outsourced or sent to other countries. So if you've ever called like AT&T and you've been answered like, hello, I am so-and-so from, they're clearly not American, because we've outsourced our jobs. We have moved jobs overseas because it's cheaper. A lot of countries like China and India don't have the same standards as we do. They don't have to pass the same safety codes. They don't have to pay their employees the same. So it's cheaper for American companies to hire them than it is for us, which means we've lost a lot of jobs over here. A lot of big companies move overseas. Coca-Cola, Ratchet. It shouldn't be allowed, I don't think. But also we like cheap goods. And so, okay, so job satisfaction. I would write down, these are the 4 things. I would write down the 4 big, just the big ones. So you don't have to write all the bullet points. The 4 things that, go to factors for satisfaction. Write down those 5 things. So People, when they say they're happy with their job, it's because A, they think their job is interesting. B, the salary is good, like good enough to live off of. The working hours are good. They're not there all night. They're not there all day. It's flexible. There's safety in the workplace. You don't feel threatened when you go to work. You don't feel like you might get hurt when you go to work. And they have good relationships with coworkers. All those things people say helps them be satisfied in their job. Now, factors for dissatisfaction: on the job stress, constantly stressed out. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm getting an overload of work. Salary. So salary can be a great thing and make you happy, but if it's not good enough, it can be a bad thing and make you very unhappy. Recognition. You're working hard and no one's recognizing your work. That is very frustrating. I know you guys as young people get very frustrated. Like, you see me putting an effort and no one's saying anything. And then there's no chances for promotion. I've worked here for 10 years and there's nowhere else for me to go from here. So those are things that are factors for dissatisfaction. Now, people on average in America will change companies 9 times. So it's not changing a career. It's like, all right, if I sell telephones, instead of selling telephones for AT&T, I'm going to go to T-Mobile. Instead of selling for T-Mobile, I'm going to go to here. So you change companies, but not careers. Now, people change careers an average of 5 to 6 times, which is crazy to me. Now, in 2020, because things are becoming more specialized, I don't necessarily want to say that's true for a lot of people, but I mean, for those people that don't have a college education, changing careers 5 to 6 times seems pretty feasible. All right, last section. This is section 3. This one's pretty quick. We're just gonna talk about old people. So when we talk about late adulthood, we're talking about 65 years and older. Excuse me. So as of 2015, 14.9% of this population in this country are 65 and older, the boomers. They're getting old. I'd write this down. Gerontology is the scientific study of aging because it is an actual science. There are things that happen to you in your body, in your mind, and your psychological being as you get older. So people study how old people, how they function when they're in the latter stages of their life. And so, the great thing about getting older is you get to retire. You don't have to work anymore. You can go and hopefully you've saved up and you've done smart things and you don't have to be the greeter at Walmart at 85 out of necessity. Now, if you want to do that just to get out of the house, do it. But you don't want to have to work when you're that old. So I would write down, I'm on the adjustment to retirement. This is slide 24. I would write down all of these things if you're taking notes by hand, because you will see this on your open note quiz. And that's going to be the last thing you need to write down. So it's hard to retire because a lot of us wrap up our whole lives in our career. When I'm done being a teacher, when people say, well, tell me about yourself, one of the first things to say is oh, I'm a high school teacher. I can't say that anymore. And so a lot of people feel like they lose rank. They're greatly bothered by the loss of the job because they've just spent you spend almost your entire life working and then you don't work anymore. What helps people adjust are things like income. If you've saved enough money, no stress. We're good to go. We can vacation and live well and hopefully just kick it till we die. Their health. If you're in good health when you retire, that's great. If you're not, it's hard because I know a lot of men get sick when they stop working because they stop moving and they just mentally can't handle it, and their body follows that. Social networking. Do you have friends? You got friends you can go kick it with Gertrude at her house at 10 in the morning, drink mimosas and watch, The Price is Right. That's really important. And your identity. All those things affect how you adjust to retirement. Unfortunately, some people, as they get older, they lose independence as well. They have to go live with a child. They have to go live in a home just because they're just not well enough to take care of themselves. But hopefully if you take care of yourself and keep it up, everything's going to be okay. Not really going to talk too much about the physical and mental functioning. We know that as you get older, your body weakens. Intellectually speaking, though, you actually don't decline that much. Unless you have an Alzheimer's dementia situation, you're still sharp. I got some aunties And of course, death becomes on your mind more as the older you get. I wouldn't focus on that. I would focus on happy things. But anyway, that is the first lecture. Again, if you need to go back, rewind this, whatever, do so. I will post the quiz in a couple of days. It is locked. Please remember that.